Yeah, well, he always had a problem with that, and I even said to him, like, dude, like, once again, I was in the main event, but you had a match with Undertaker. I mean, that's a main event on any WrestleMania, you know? And he goes, you were on last. You can't tell me any differently. You don't know how I feel. You were in the main event. I was like, okay. So he was always had that in his head. I don't think it was as bad as it was at this point when we worked, because the reason why I thought of Punk was we had worked quite a bit over the years. We got along really well. We always had great matches. And I was the best in the world. And I left for a year or so, and he was the best in the world. So I said, well, this is great. We can do a best in the world versus best in the world match, right? So that's kind of what the idea was. And the original plan for the opening angle to get that rolling was I was going to tattoo CM Punk. What do you mean? I was going to do an angle where I knocked him out and handcuffed him to the ring ropes, take out a tattoo needle, and tattoo my initials onto his body. I would get a tattoo artist to show me how to do it and do like a CJ, okay? And I remember pitching that to Vince, and he was like, well, who cares? He's got so many tattoos. What difference does it make? I said, the difference is I'm tattooing him. And he's like, well, so what? He's got, and I said, well, so you mean if a prostitute whose job is selling herself for sex, then he goes, you can't say that. I'm like, well, you're basically, it's for a tattoo guy to get tattooed unwantedly. It doesn't matter if you have one tattoo or 1,000. It's something that you'll always have to look at it and always think of it. It's very embarrassing and very violating, right? And so finally Vince went for it. And so we had it all planned and we were going to do it. And I think that we even had a tattoo artist there who was going to show me early in the day. And Vince then came to us and said, we're not doing the tattoo thing. It's like, why? Because tattoos bleed too much. Now, you guys have tattoos. They don't really bleed that much, and especially a smaller one, it might bleed a little bit where the blood wells up, but it's not like you're, gigging and there's buckets of blood flowing out of this tattoo. So once again, I think somebody got in Vince's head that didn't like the tattoo idea and just decided that, it's too much blood. We're going to get thrown off the air. So then Vince just came and said, well, we're going to do this thing that I understand Punk's dad is an alcoholic. Let's do an angle on that. And you can bury his family and, bury his dad for being an alcoholic. And I was like, have you talked to Punk about this and asked him? He goes, no. He did talk to Punk, and Punk went for it, and that was kind of the angle of the thing. I was trying to get him to, to waver from his straight edge ways and sending liquor baskets to his dressing room. And then one day he drank it, and I was like, I gotcha. And I had a sheriff to give him a sobriety test where I just watched it back where he had, I don't know if you guys have ever been pulled over if they even do that here. One of the things they ask you to do if you're suspected of drunk driving is say the alphabet backwards. I can't say the alphabet backwards if I'm stone cold sober. I can barely say the alphabet forwards. I still get G and H mixed up. So Punk did it. He went over it and did it backwards, and there's a really kind of a pretty cool angle when you consider where it stemmed from. So then we get to the match, and Punk and I had this idea where we would have this modern day Savage and Steamboat classic with two guys with similar styles and a good story. And we told Vince that, and Vince said, no, I see it as a 2-minute DQ. And we were both like, a 2-minute DQ? I remember we were told that by the writers, and so we had to go have a meeting with him. He's like, you have been burying his dad, burying his family, calling him an alcoholic, trying to get him drunk, trying to do all these dastardly things. If he goes in there and has a 25-minute wrestling match with you, that makes him look awful. And he did kind of have a point. If we would have known that, maybe we wouldn't have done the angle the way we did it, but then that's when we came up with the idea, okay, well, if Punk gets disqualified, then he loses the title. So at least there's a reason where he can beat the shit out of me, but he can't go too far, because then he loses the title anyway. So that was kind of the story of the match.